He heard the old man's breathing was slowing down to an even breathing. Go Jing refrained himself from asking that old man question. He simply sat quietly opposite him, closed his eyes and used that time to meditate. Soon he was able to calm himself and achieve the state of emptiness. He lost track of time and opened his eyes when the morning star began to dim by the dawn sunlight. The morning light shone through the trees and flowers above, illuminating the old man's face. Go Jing could see clearly now. His hair and beard were not entirely white, but God knows how many years a shaving knife had not touched his head. He looked like a caveman. Suddenly that old man's eyes opened. His eyes were bright and twinkling. He smiled faintly and asked, "Which one of the Quanzhen 7 masters is your master?" Go Jing saw his countenance was kind. He was put at ease. He stood up and bowed respectfully. Disciple Go Jing pays his respect to senior. "I am the disciple of the 7 heroes of Jiangnan." That old man seemed surprised. 7 heroes of Jiangnan? Are that Kaizhener and the others? How could they teach you the internal energy cultivation of Quanzhen sect? He asked. Actually, Venerable Dan Yang, Taoist priest Ma had spent 2 years teaching disciple, but he had not included me inside the Quanzhen sect's gate and wall, Go Jing answered. That old man laughed heartily and then made faces. He looked so funny, like a child playing jokes. "So that is how it is," he said. "How did you come to the Peach Blossom Island?" "Master Huang told me to come," replied Go Jing. The old man's face suddenly changed. "What for?" he asked. Disciple had offended Master Huang, Go Jing answered. "I come here to accept my fate." "Are you telling the truth?" the old man asked. "Disciple does not dare to lie," answered Go Jing. The old man nodded. "Very good. Sit down," he commanded. Go Jing sat on a big rock. Now he could see clearly that the old man was sitting inside a cave on the rock wall. "Other than your masters, who had taught you martial arts?" the old man asked again. "The nina-fingered divine beggar, benevolent Master Hong," Go Jing said. The old man's face changed again. It was so weird, like he was going to smile but restrained himself. "Hong Shigong also taught you martial art?" he interrupted. "Yes," replied Go Jing. "Benevolent Master Hong taught me the 18 dragon subduing palms." The old man's face showed happiness and envy at the same time. "You know 18 dragon subduing palms? This martial art is so amazing. How about teaching me that? I will take you as my master." But then he shook his head and said, "Won't do. Won't do. As the old Hong's disciple, your energy must not that strong." "Did old beggar Hong teach you internal energy?" "He did not," answered Go Jing truthfully. The old man looked up and thought aloud, "He looks so young. Even if he cultivated his internal energy inside his mother's womb, that would at most 18, 19 years worth of internal energy. How could he resist the flute sound, while I could not?" He was deep in thought for a moment. Then he looked at Go Jing from top to bottom and again from bottom to top. He stretched his right palm and said, "Push my palm. I want to test your martial art." Go Jing complied. He extended his right palm and pushed. The old man said, "Shi at your dan Jian, push hard." Go Jing exerted his strength. The old man pulled his palm slightly, then pushed hard while cried out, "Be careful." Go Jing sensed a powerful force pushing him. He could not hold it, so he used his left hand to enforce his right palm. Who would have thought that old man flipped his palm and pushed Go Jing's wrist with his 4 fingers. The power of these fingers was enough to send Go Jing flew backward 7, 8 steps until his back hit a tree. Only then did Go Jing manage to stand. His martial art is not bad, but nothing extraordinary either, the old man muttered. But how could he resist the old heretic Huang's jade-colored tidal wave song? Go Jing felt his chest tightened. He was astonished. This man's martial art is about the same level as benevolent Master Hong's and Master Huang's. How could there be an expert his caliber in the Peach Blossom Island? Could it be he was the Western Poison or the Southern Emperor? As soon as he remembered Western Poison, his heart turned cold. Did I fall into his trickery? Quickly he lifted his palm under the sunlight and checked it out. But he did not see any inflammation or black mark. He was relieved. At least he wasn't being poisoned. Can you guess who I am? That old man laughed. Disciple had heard people say that in the martial art realm there are 5 experts. The Quan Zen's founder Venerable Wang had passed away. Disciples have met the Nina-fingered divine beggar benevolent Master Hong and the master of Peach Blossom Island. Could Senior be Senior Oang or Emperor Duan? You thought my martial art is comparable to the Eastern Heretic and Northern Beggar, didn't you? The old man smiled. Disciple's martial art is mediocre, my experience shallow, I do not dare to speak nonsense. But when Senior pushed me a moment ago, I can say with confidence that other than benevolent Master Hong and Master Huang, I have never experienced such force, Go Jing said. That old man was delighted with Go Jing's praise. His face looked like a child's happy face. I am neither the Western Poison Ouyang Feng, nor the Emperor Duan, he smiled broadly. Guess again. Go Jing hesitated. Disciple had met somebody whose name was as well known as benevolent Master Hong, Q Qianren. But this person's martial art is just ordinary. The disciple is really not smart. I cannot guess Senior's honored name, he said. That old man laughed heartily. My surname is Zhu. Can you guess now? He asked. Ah, you are Zhu Batong? Go Jing blurted. As the words came out of his mouth, Go Jing froze. Mentioning someone's name, especially a senior, could be considered disrespectful. He quickly bowed and apologized. Disciple had shown disrespect. Would Senior Zhu please forgive me? The old man laughed. You are right. I am precisely Zhu Batong. My name is Zhu Batong, and you called me Zhu Batong. When did you show me disrespect? The Quanzhen sect's founder Wang Chongyang was my martial brother. Ma Yu, Q Chuji and the others are my martial nephews. You are not a Quanzhen disciple. You don't have to call me Senior this or Senior that. Just call me Zhu Batong. How would disciple dare? Go Jing asked. Zhu Batong had lived in the Peach Blossom Island for a long time. He was bored, but suddenly Go Jing came along. Talking with him he found relief. He was thrilled. Suddenly a strange thought came into his mind. Little friend, what do you say you and I become sworn brothers? He asked. No matter how strange his words were, this was the weirdest of all. Go Jing's jaw dropped. He looked at Zhu Batong in disbelief. He thought Zhu was joking. After a while he opened his mouth. Disciple is Priest Ma and Priest Kaz Jr. I deserve to address you as my Grand Martial Master. Zhu Batong busily shook his hands. My martial art skill came from my martial brother. Ma Yu, Q Chuji and the others did not consider me their senior. They also did not respect me as a senior. You are not my son, I am not yours. We do not have older-younger generation difference. Speaking thus he heard footsteps approaching. An old servant appeared, carrying a food basket. Zhu Batong beamed, our food is here. The servant opened the basket and took out 4 dishes of food, 2 pots of wine and a wooden basket full of rice. He placed the food in front of Zhu Batong, on top of a big rock. Poured out 2 cups of wine and stood silently aside. Where is Miss Huang? Why didn't she come looking for me? Go Jing asked. That servant shook his head, pointing to his ear and his mouth, signaling that he was deaf and mute. Huang Yaoshi had punctured his ears. You can ask him to open his mouth wide and take a look, Zhu Batong chuckled. Go Jing made a signal, asking that servant to open his mouth. Go Jing was startled and scared. That servant's tongue had been cut in half. The servants of Peach Blossom Island are just like that, Zhu Batong said. You have come here. If you don't die, you will end up like them. Go Jing heard what he said. He was silent for a long time. How could Ronger's father be so cruel? He thought. That old heretic Huang tortures me every night, Zubatong continued. I don't want to admit defeat to him. Last night I was almost fallen in his hand. If not for you, little brother, my more than 10 years' effort of resisting him might crumble in one evening. Come little brother, here we have wine and food. Today we will take an oath to be sworn brothers. In the future we will share fortune and bear difficult times together. That year when Wang Chongyang and I became sworn brothers, he also refused in every way. Why? Do you really not know? My sworn brother Wang Chongyang's martial art was much higher than mine. That was why he was not willing to swear brotherhood with me. Is your martial art also much higher than mine? I don't think so. Junior's martial art is way below yours, Go Jing answered. I don't deserve to swear brotherhood with you. If you say to swear brotherhood have to have the same level of martial art, then I have to swear brotherhood with old heretic Huang, or old poison, Zubatong said. I only like to fight with them. Thoughts ridiculous. Do you want me to swear brotherhood with this deaf and mute fellow? He pointed to that old servant. Jumped up and down in a fit of rage. Go Jing saw his face was red. He quickly said, disciple and senior differ by 2 generations. If I follow senior's direction, people will laugh at us and ridicule me. If later on I meet Priest Ma and Priest Q, how could I not be ashamed? You have these many considerations. You certainly don't want to swear brotherhood with me because I am too old. Boo-hoo! Zubatong covered his face and cried, randomly pulling his beard. Go Jing nervously waved his hands. Disciple will do whatever senior instructed. Zubatong cried even harder. You said that because of my coercion, you reluctantly agreed. That doesn't count. When someone asks in the future, you will say that it was entirely my fault. I know you are not willing to call me your sworn brother. Go Jing was secretly amused. How could such an old man not at his age? He saw him taking up a dish and tossed it outside. Did not want to eat anymore. The old servant promptly picked it up. He didn't know what was going on and he was terrified. Go Jing had no choice. Suppressing his laugh he said, since elder brother had shown kindness, how could little brother not accept? Let us use the earth in place of incense. We become sworn brothers. Zubatong smiled through his tears. I have sworn to old heretic Huang that as long as I cannot defeat him, I will never leave this hole except for bowel movement or urinating. I kowtow inside, you kowtow outside, he said. If you fight Master Huang all your life, then you will live in this hole all your life? Go Jing thought. But he did not say anything. Simply knelt down on the ground. Zubatong knelt alongside. With a clear voice he said, today the old urchin Zubatong and Go Jing are tying a brotherhood. We will share good fortune together and will face difficulty together. If I break this oath, may my martial art perish that I can't even fight a puppy or a kitten. Go Jing heard he called himself old urchin, and his oath was sort of peculiar. He could not restrain his smile. Zubatong stared at him. What are you smiling at? Quickly say your oath. Go Jing quickly recited his oath. Then 2 people poured down the wine on the ground. Go Jing then paid his respect to his elder brother. Zubatong laughed heartily and loudly shouted, "Thought's enough. Thought's enough." He poured some more wine and drank. The old heretic Huang is very stingy. He served me only insipid wine. One day a little miss came and brought me some good wine. It's a pity she never came back. Go Jing remembered Wang Rong told him she stole some wine and brought it to Zubatong, and because of that she was scolded by her father, which caused her to leave the island in anger. It looked like Zubatong was not aware of it. Go Jing had been hungry for the whole day. He did not want to drink any wine. But he ate 5 big bowls of plain rice. Now at least he was full. As soon as 2 people finished eating, the old servant cleaned up and took the leftovers back. Brother, Zubatong asked, how did you offend the old heretic Huang? Tell your big brother. Go Jing then narrated how he accidentally killed Chen Shu and Feng in his childhood. how at the Cloud Village he had fought and defeated Mai Chao Feng, how Huang Yaoshi made things difficult for the 6 freaks of Jiangnan, how because of that he had made a promise to come to the Peach Blossom Island within a month to die. He told Zhu everything. Zhu Batong loved to listen to stories. He leaned his head and narrowed his eyes to focus. He listened with enthusiasm. When Go Jing only recounted something briefly, he would ask every detail of it. Every time Go Jing paused even for the slightest time, he urged him, "Then what happened?" "Then I arrived here," Go Jing finally said. Zhu Batong hesitated a moment. Turns out that pretty little girl is the old heretic Huang's daughter. She is good to you. Why did she disappear soon after arriving at the island? Must have a reason. Maybe old heretic Huang locked her up. Go Jing's anxiety showed on his face. Disciple also has this thought. What did you say? Zhu Batong snapped. His face changed color. Go Jing knew he made a mistake. Quickly said, "Little brother made an indiscreet remark. Please don't mind me, big brother." Zhu Batong smiled. "The way you address me cannot be wrong. If you call me any name, then you'd better call me Wifi, or Mummy, or Daughter." "No, can't make a mistake," he said. Go Jing agreed. Zhu Batong leaned his head and asked, "Could you guess how I ended up being here?" "Brother is just about to ask," Go Jing said. "It's a long story, I will tell you leisurely," Zhu Batong said. "Do you know when the Eastern Heretic, Western Poison, Southern Emperor, Northern Beggar and the Central Divinity, the 5 experts were having a sword meet on Mount Hua?" Go Jing nodded. "I've heard people say that." "It was the dead of wintertime at Mount Hua," Zhu Batong continued. "The peak was covered with heavy snow. 5 people were having a meeting there. Their hands contended in martial arts straight for 7 whole days and nights. In the end, the Eastern Heretic, Western Poison, Southern Emperor, and the Northern Beggar admitted that my martial brother, Wang Chongyang's martial art was #1 in the world. Do you know why those 5 people were having that sword meeting at Mount Hua?" "This, brother had not heard," Go Jing replied. "It was because of a scripture," Zhu Batong said. "The 9 Yin Manual." Go Jing exclaimed. "That's right," Zhu Batong said. "Brother, you are young, but your knowledge of Wulin matters is not shallow. Do you know the origin of the 9 Yin Manual, then?" "That I actually do not know," Go Jing replied. Zhu Batong playfully pulled his ears and long hair, and his face showed that he was very pleased with himself. "A moment ago you told me a very interesting story. Now what I told you was not a story. That was really happening to me," Go Jing interrupted. "What is the difference?" "As long as it is good to listen to," Zhu Batong said. "Some people spend their lives eating, sleeping, urinating and defecating. If those people tell me every single details of their life, the old urchin will die of suffocation." Go Jing nodded his head. "That's true," he said. "Then why doesn't Big Brother tell the story of the 9 Yin Manual for Little Brother to hear?" The Emperor Huizong in the year of Zheng, he wanted to compile Taoist books and scriptures from all over the world. He wanted to publish the work, which consisted of 5,481 chapters altogether. They were called the Everlasting Life Taoist Canon. The Emperor commissioned someone to do the work. He was called Huang Sheng. He was also surnamed Huang. Go Jing asked. "Bah! What's so special about the family name Huang?" Zhu Batong spat. "This person had nothing to do with the old heretic Huang Yaoshi. Don't you have any wrong ideas? There are numerous people surnamed Huang in this world. The Huang Yellow Dog or Yellow Cat also surnamed Huang." Go Jing thought that Yellow Dog and the Yellow Cat did not necessarily have Huang as their surnames, but he did not want to debate him. So he let him continue with his story. "This old heretic Huang is not as smart as that Huang Sheng. He was extremely intelligent," Zhu Batong continued. Go Jing wanted to say, it turned out he was also an extremely intelligent person, but that thought stopped at his mouth. This Huang Sheng was very afraid he might make any mistake in the writing of the canon. Because if the emperor found out later, he would surely lose his head. Therefore, he read and reread each volume to make sure his work was error-free. Unexpectedly, after several years of studying the scriptures, he became very proficient in the Taoist doctrines. He had found the profound truth of martial arts. He did not have any master. He trained himself in internal and external energy cultivation and became a grand master in martial art. Brother, this Wang Sheng was many times smarter than you are. I don't have his kind of intelligence, and I don't think you do too. Naturally, Go Jing said. If I were to study more than 5,000 chapters of scripture, it will take me a lifetime just to read them from beginning to the end. How can I comprehend the martial art inside them? Zuba Tong sighed. This kind of intelligent people still exist in the world today, he said, but if you meet this kind of people, chances are you will face unfortunate events. Go Jing did not agree with his view. He secretly thought, Wronger is very intelligent. But since I met her, I have always found good luck. How can he say unfortunate? But he was not the kind who likes to argue, so he kept his thought to himself. That Wang Sheng had mastered the martial art, yet he still held an office in the government, Zuba Tong continued. There came a time when suddenly there arose a religious movement in the kingdom. They called themselves Ming cult something. It was said that this movement was originated from Central Asia, a place called Persia. The follower of this Ming cult were first, did not worship Taoist deity. Second, did not worship ancestors' spirit. Third, did not worship Buddha. They only worship old foreign devil. They did not eat meat nor drink wine. They were vegetarians. The Emperor Huizong only believed in Taoism. So as soon as he found out, he issued an imperial decree assigning Wang Sheng to eradicate this devil cult. Unexpectedly, there were many martial art masters among the members of the cult. They were fearless of death and fought Wang Sheng and his troops, rendered them useless. After several battles, Wang Sheng and his troops suffered a big loss. Wang Sheng was indignant. He went out and challenged the devil cult's martial art masters on Onatune combat. He personally killed several imperial priests and some envoys. Who would have known that the people he killed were disciples of well-known Wulin characters? Some were their martial uncles, aunts, brothers, sisters, or their immediate families. Of course, these people were enraged and they came together to face him. They scolded him as not handling the affairs according to the Wulin custom. To which Wang Sheng replied, I am a government officer, and I'm not part of the Wulin world. What do I know about your Wulin custom? Those whom family or relative was killed argued, if you are not part of the Wulin world, then how did you know martial art? Are you saying that your master only taught you martial art, but did not tell you anything about the Wulin custom? Wang Sheng replied, I don't have any master. Of course they did not believe him. So they were involved in a heated argument. What do you think happened? They began to fight each other, Go Jing said. Without question, wasn't it? Zuba Tong said. Wang Sheng's martial art was strange. None of his enemies had seen it. Because of this, he could kill some of them quite easily. However, his enemies were numerous. He was also injured from the fight, so in desperation he ran away. Those enemies of him then wiped his parents, wife and children clean. Listening to this part, Go Jing heaved a sigh. He thought that people who practiced martial art would unavoidably kill others. This Wang Sheng was no different. If he did not practice a martial art, he would not experience such a tragedy. That Wang Sheng fellow had run away to a deserted place and hid himself there, Zuba Tong continued. There he tried to remember his enemies' martial art one by one. He painstakingly pondered on how to defeat each and every one of them. He thought that as soon as he succeeded in developing the martial art, he would go back and seek his revenge. A long time passed. Finally he was able to master the new martial art. He was very happy, expecting that very soon he would be able to avenge his family. Thereupon he left the mountain to seek his enemies. But unexpectedly the people he was looking for had disappeared. Can you guess what happened to them? Perhaps his enemies have found out his intention, and they knew his martial art was good, so they were scared and hid from him, Go Jing guessed. Zubatong shook his head. No, no. When my martial brother told me this story, he also asked me to guess what happened, and I also said the same thing. I even made 7, 8 guesses, but none of them was right. Well, if Big Brother guessed 7, 8 times yet did not hit the target, then I don't have to make any guess at all. Since even if I guess 70, 80 times I certainly cannot guess right, Go Jing said. Zubatong roared in laughter. No chance, you have no chance at all. All right, since you admit defeat, I won't ask you to guess anymore. Actually, several dozens of his enemies had all died. Go Jing uttered a cry of disbelief. Thoughts strange. Could it be that his friends or maybe his disciples had avenged him and killed all his enemies? He asked. Again Zubatong shook his head. No, no. You missed by 108,000 lists. He did not have any disciple. He was a government official, his friends were all scholars, not martial artists. How could they avenge him? Go Jing scratched his head. Could it be that they were plagued by some disease and died in some kind of epidemic? Also incorrect. His enemies were scattered. Some lived in Shandong, some came from Hegang, several were from Hebei and Liang's. How could they die from the same epidemic? Zubatong asked, but then he exclaimed. Ah! Yes, yes. Thoughts right. Some epidemic could kill you no matter where you are, even if you ran to the end of the earth. Can you guess what kind of epidemic was it? Go Jing mentioned typhus, smallpox, dysentery, and 6, 7 other type of diseases. But Zubatong shook his head every time. Finally Go Jing exclaimed, Foot-and-mouth disease. Then he faked surprise, covered his mouth, stood up and tapped his head with his left hand and burst into laughter. I was kidding. Foot-and-mouth disease is the plague of the cattle at the Mongolian desert. It won't attack humans. Zubatong also burst in laughter. The more you guessed, the weirder you became. That Huangsheng looked everywhere before he finally found one of his enemies. She was a woman. When they fought, she was only about 16, 17 years old young girl, but when Huangsheng found her, she was some 60-year-old granny. Go Jing's jaw dropped. This is really weird. Ah, right, she must have disguised herself as an old lady so Huangsheng wouldn't recognize her. She did not disguise herself, Zubatong answered. Just think, Huangsheng had several dozens of enemies. Each one of them was a martial art expert. Each came from a respectable martial arts school or family. Can you imagine how profound and complicated each of their skills was? He wanted to defeat each person's unique skill. Just how much time did he painstakingly spend to achieve such a result? He was hiding in a remote mountain area and diligently trained himself. Day and night only martial art occupied his mind. He did not care about anything else. Unconsciously he had spent more than 40 years altogether. More than 40 years? Go Jing was astonished. Thoughts right, Zubatong asserted. When you are absorbed in learning the martial art, 40 years will pass quite easily. I have been here for 15 years yet did not feel like it was that long. Huangsheng saw that young girl turned into an old granny. His heart was heavy with emotion. That old lady was sick to the bone. She was bedridden and was dying. Without him moving his hand, she would die in a few days. His heartache and hatred for dozens of years just vanished without a trace. Brother, everybody has to die. The epidemic I was asking you earlier was a death. When your time comes, you cannot run away. Go Jing silently nodded. Zubatong continued. My martial brother and his 7 disciples day in and day out dedicated themselves to achieve perfection of life. But tell me, is it really possible to cultivate a divine body that won't see death? That was the reason I did not want to follow those ox-nosed way of living. Go Jing was lost in thought. Zubatong continued. Huangsheng's enemies were about 40, 50 years of age. Another 40 years plus, how could they not die? Ha ha ha, actually he did not have to trouble himself by training his martial art and developing new techniques. All he had to do was outlive his enemies. 40 plus years and the heaven would take care of his personal enemies for him. Go Jing nodded. Well then, should I look for Wanyan Hongli to avenge my father, or should I not? He wondered in his heart. Zubatong again said, however, learning martial art diligently could bring endless pleasure to one's life. If one did not practice the martial art, what other interesting things worth doing? There are endless toys and gadgets in the world, but after playing for a while you will get bored eventually. Only martial art. The more you play, the more interesting it becomes. Brother, don't you agree? Go Jing only made an sound non-committally, showing neither his approval nor disapproval. He admitted that knowing martial art could be fun. But it was also hard work. He had trained martial art since he was very young and he could not say the training was fun. He had to work and suffer hard. Without a single leisure day. Zubatong saw him did not show enthusiasm. Why didn't you ask me what happened next? He asked. Go Jing hastily said. Right. What happened next? Zubatong was sulking. If you don't prompt me every now and then I will lose my eagerness in telling you the story. Yes, big brother, what happened next? Go Jing prompted. That Wang Sheng thought, I realize I am old now, but do not have too many years of good works. He had taken these several dozens of years in pain to master the martial art technique of almost every martial art schools in the world. But after all these years who would enjoy his works? How could he let his long life's work wasted just like that? Therefore, he decided to compile the techniques he had mastered into a 12-volume book. What would that be? What is it? Go Jing asked. Don't tell me you cannot guess this one, Zubatong said. Go Jing thought for a moment, then asked, is it the 9-yin manual?